What time you get?
5:57.
Huh?
5:57.
All right, good. That clock's a little slow. Hey, until you guys get a professional recording guy here, then I'm gonna be your man. That's professional? Oops, sorry. Since this is at 6 o'clock, there's gonna be a lot less people coming. This is how the board meetings used to be. Before I made a stink and they made it to 7 o'clock, that was 4 or 5 years ago.
My wife is trying to get us all the information so we can do it locally, so we can just go online and
Yeah.
do all that stuff. Apparently we can just buy our own equipment, which I think is the way to do it, all our own stuff instead of renting.
And we can see the questions come up right there on that screen.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Don't make that face. You look like Martin Short.
Wow.
Hey, I got that pool running next door. His pool was all messed up next door. They turned the electric back on.
I was thinking about squatting or having a, what is it, Loki Boy, the guy who comes with him, and just charging him around.
Yeah.
By the time anyone figures it out.
So who's not here? Jose Cabrera?
Looks like it. Don't come in here with your tie. Come on.
Okay, so let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Palm Beach Plantation Homeowners Association. This is a board member orientation, and there are some items. We have an agenda that everybody has available to them. I'm going to go ahead and start each meeting call to order with a roll call of the members present very quickly. We can just, because this will be helpful for everybody to identify the board members as we go through these meetings. At some point, we'll stop doing the roll call, but I want everybody in the audience to know who's who and what they're saying. So let's start that with Eric Chuckin.
Fran Sabisky.
Kia Chardon.
Michael Minter. Dan Thomas. John Gavian. Thank you.
Bob just showed up too.
Yeah.
You want to just introduce yourself to everybody? I'm just doing a members present roll call.
Who are you? That's Bob. Who is that dancing? My name is Robert Pate, and for some individuals I'm too loud, but at my age it's going to be kind of hard. So if I heard any of your eardrops, please tell me to come. What'd you say? Huh? Well, Bob. But I'm sorry, I apologize. So I've been living in the neighborhood since 2006. As I said in my resume, I've been to most of the board meetings. I've seen. Oh, just seen.
Yeah, we were just.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We're just doing a roll call. Thanks.
Roll call. President Jennifer.
Thanks. Bob's an armed forces guy, so he's familiar with that. And then at this time, we normally go through and approve the minutes, but we don't need to do that because we don't have any minutes from the last. Do we have minutes from the annual meeting?
No.
Okay, that's what I thought. So there are no minutes to approve. Generally, I go into officer reports at this point, and one of the things that we're going to do, and I'm going to try to keep my comments brief at this meeting, but I thought it would be very important, especially after the annual meeting that we just had, for everybody to understand how I would like to have the board meetings run. Our governing documents require our board to use Robert's Rules of Order. And so what I've done is I've got a copy, like an executive summary of Robert's Rules of Order. And I'm going to briefly go through them because I think it's important for some of the board members that are new. Some of them have been here a while, so they don't need to really pay much attention. But for the board members that are new, I want them to understand how Robert's Rules of Order works and how we're supposed to use it so we can maintain decorum at these meetings. Because I think it's really important that we maintain that. So the first thing that I would say that's very important from Robert's Rules of Order is I'll go through the issues with the meeting and calling it to order and going through the minutes and all of that. When we start going through unfinished business and new business, obviously each member of this board needs to utilize Robert's Rules of Order in making a motion. And you make an initial motion, and you need to state your motion very clearly. And it needs to be clear enough for not only the board to understand it, but also for everybody in the audience, all the members to understand it. And I've been in meetings before where motions are not exactly clear, or the motions are sort of a talking motion and it becomes fluid and it becomes problematic. Let me start the record like that. Mr. Cabrera. That's okay. So I mean, the purpose of the motion is to introduce items to the membership and also to the board that we want to take action on. What's going to be important is that in the past, there have been motions made by board members, then there's been a second, and then there's been discussion among the board members, and there's been action taken, and then there's been a delay in the members' ability to make comment on the motions. We are going to go back to Robert's Rules of Order, which is a motion will be made, it will be seconded if it's supported by somebody on the board. We will then put it on the table for discussion by the board first, and then we will ask for comments from the members. What I ask, and I'm going to ask this every time that there's a motion, is that when the members make their comments, that they direct it to the motion. So it's very important that members that are in the audience that are coming to speak to a motion, that they listen to what the motion is, so that we don't have digressions and tangents and all kinds of stuff. It's really important because we want to respect your time and we hope that you want to respect our time. So, like tonight's meeting, we have a 6 o'clock meeting, it runs from 6 to 7. 7 o'clock, there's a hearing committee meeting here. So my goal as the president of this board, and hopefully as Wanda as vice president if I'm not here, is we need to make these meetings move quick, we need to take our action, and we need members to be prepared. So we appreciate you all being here. I'm excited about everybody being here on short notice for this meeting. But that's how Robert's Rules of Order is supposed to work. You know, if there is no second to the motion, obviously it dies, and that's it. There is an ability for the person making the motion or somebody else to ask that the motion be tabled, and then it essentially is in limbo. But those are sort of things that probably won't happen very often, and we'll encounter issues and situations and we'll deal with them. But I think that it's really important that we all understand that you got to make a motion, you got to have support with some other board member, and then it's going to go to discussion both here at this table and out in the audience. That's really important. That's something that I ran on, and I think it's really important, and I think I've got the full support of the board in allowing members to have comment on motions as they're pending. You know, the rest of the stuff in Robert's Rules of Order, the most important thing at the bottom of what I've handed to board members is, most importantly, be courteous. You know, we have rules of debate. We'll try to do all we can to maintain decorum here as your board. We have to be representative of you all. We want to be professional. So if you have a problem with something that happens at a meeting, I want you to tell me, and I want you to tell the management company, and we'll do something about it. The next thing I want to talk about is sort of methods of communication. Let me stop for a second and make sure if any of the board members have questions about Robert's Rules of Order and how it works. Any questions? Okay. Any questions from the audience about anything that I've said so far? Matt?
We're going to send out the agenda ahead of time so we can be prepared to ask questions as you go through.
It's a very good point. Yes. Okay. Yes, the answer is yes. And we'll try to do our very best because we have just come out of the annual meeting and And we're trying to get committees going, which is a big part of this meeting, and trying to make sure we have sort of a seamless entry of the board so that we keep going on the good projects that were happening. You know, we'll try to be better about getting that agenda out so that you can determine whether you can be here or not, or whether you want to attend in person. And in that same vein, you'll notice that on the bottom of the agenda, there's a discussion point about real-time web access, which is going to be a big deal that I want to talk about. There's another gentleman had a comment.
Yeah, and is there a way to know what motions will be covered that day in case we're not here, we can't be here, or what have you?
Good question. Unfortunately, the motions aren't known until they're made. So the best I think that we can do as a board is to give you as descriptive an agenda as possible. This agenda is a fairly generic agenda just because it's focusing on board orientation and committees. We'll try to be as detailed in the agenda as we can so that everybody has proper notice for the meetings. And also most of our meetings are going to happen with more notice than just 48 hours for this orientation meeting. So hopefully that'll be helpful.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So when you pass the motion, does the board, does the people have anything to say about it before you pass the motion or
Yes,
after
sir.
the passage?
Yes, sir. Before you came in, we discussed that, and the answer is yes. There will be a motion, a second to the motion. It'll be put on the table for discussion, first by the board, then it'll go to the audience for member discussion. But the member discussion and comments need to be directed specifically to the motion, so it's important that the member and the audience that hears the motion listens intently.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, let me move to the next point, which is I think is very important from my standpoint, given where we've come from. What I'm trying to do as the president of this board, and I think that I have the support of this board as well, is we have to create methods of communication. We have way too many methods for communicating, and not every communication is acted on if it's not properly channeled, okay? So the way I was raised by my parents was fairly militaristic, in that I knew that if I had a problem with somebody, or if I had a concern or a comment, I went to a point person that had responsibility. We are going to employ that method with this board. So if you have a complaint or a concern as a homeowner, there's two people that need to know about it. It's me and it's the management company. As the president of the board, Dawn had enacted some very good rules that I've handed out to the board about how issues are going to be addressed. They're going to be addressed as follows. You have a concern as a homeowner, you raise it to the president then says, okay, the person that's most knowledgeable about this issue, that is responsible for the committee that's responsible for this issue, is so-and-so. There'll be a direct line of delegation to that person that's on the board to take care of the issue. That person will work with the management company on a day-to-day basis to resolve your concern. That's the best way to do it as far as I'm concerned, and I think it's consistent with the board rules that were enacted by the prior board. I'm going to continue to follow that. And I will tell you that a lot of people have sent email communications to me. I have a very full inbox, but I try to go through it and try to be as responsive as I can. And then if there is an issue, I send it to the management committee or the management company. And I follow up with them to make sure that it gets done. Now, as we develop these committees, which is a big part of this meeting coming up, there are going to be people that are going to be boots on the ground on this board that are involved in committees that are going to get things resolved. And so I hope that that meets with the members' approval, because I find that, in issues that need to be followed up on, there may be very quick action at the beginning and then it may die. And we can't have that. We don't want that. We're in customer service, and so we need to resolve your issues. So that's the first thing in terms of a liaison. What you're going to hear later when we discuss the committee issue is that each board member will head up a committee, so that there is a direct line of communication. When a homeowner goes and says, I have a problem, it goes to the president and the management company. We go to the board member who's in charge of the committee, and then the committee will enact and deal with the issue. And I think, and again, that's what I propose to the board. I'd like to stop talking now and make sure that the board's okay with that. And if there are any suggestions from the room, I'd like to hear it. But any comments from the board on that approach of method of communication?
On the method of communication, on the committee setup that you're talking about, yes. I feel that at least we should have a board member as a chair, as you're saying, but I do believe some of our committees should at least have a co-chair of a homeowner. That way they have the same voice as a board member
I agree.
within that committee.
I agree, and that's something that we'll get to in the committee, but in terms of the,
Sorry, didn't mean to
no, that's
cut that
okay, in terms of the rules of communication, is there anybody else that has any other questions or thoughts? I mean, is that, no, okay, anybody in the audience? Yes, Dawn?
Yes, I have a question with regard to communication and facilitating information to the homeowners. I agree with you 100% in what you said, but I also think we need to address the fact that now the panel up here are now board members and you are held to a higher standard. I don't think there should be interaction with board business on the Neighborhood Watch or the Facebook or any type of social network. I think it needs to facilitate through the proper channels and come from the board via the web page or whatever avenue you decide to utilize as a board. But you know, all the rhetoric and stuff back and forth with the homeowners and comments or business, I think that it needs to be channeled to come through one source and not, you know, all different board members commenting on different items, because it's just, it'll be distracting and I think it'll be counterproductive.
I agree, and I think from an accountability standpoint, it allows, let's say a member has a concern. They send an email or they call me, and they also copy the management company on it. That allows me as the president to follow up with the management company to make sure that it's being taken care of. The point of contact will then be communicated back to the homeowner. So there is a point of contact, and it's not, oh, I thought so-and-so was handling it, or I thought so-and-so was, there's got to be accountability, and that's what I'm trying to employ. And you were reading my mind, which is the second rule that was in your rules that you employed as the president, which is criticism and specific instructions to the management company will be channeled through the president. And that's what's important, so that I can listen to you as your president, as concerns, and say, okay, this is what I think may be the best way to deal with it. Instead of just saying, okay, talk to Christine about it, or, you know, talk to one of the board members about it. I think that is important, and that's the reason why I ran, was because I wanted to try to resolve people's issues. So to the extent I can do that, I'll be involved, but it's going to be important that we have each board member heading up a committee, because that will be very helpful for me, because I'm only one person. Yes, Matt?
I'd make sure, I would appreciate if you guys would make sure that this goes out as an e-blast or something to communicate exactly how the protocol works, because that's how the last board got into trouble where people thought we weren't being transparent, but we were just trying to follow protocol. So, you know, there's only so many things that you can tell people based on what's going on and how it's involved, who's involved, and privacy and everything else. And people took that as us not being transparent. So I think that needs to be communicated to people that this is how it works and this is why it has to work that way. So they don't think we're just trying to keep secrets.
Good point. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, we can also publicize on web.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you're formulating these committees and developing the infrastructure of how this is going to operate, has consideration been given to how you're going to deal with apparent conflicts of interest, if presented by audience members or others? How will you deal with it internally among the board?
It's a good question. I think we'll have to deal with them as they arise, but I think that that it's important that a board member head up each committee, and then we would love to have as many members as are interested in that committee as possible. Those committees will then make recommendations to the board through the board member or through the other co-chair of the committee to this board to make decisions. So the committees themselves don't actually take action. They make recommendations. So whether there's a conflict of interest would be left to the individual committee chair to deal with the conflict of interest. If there is an issue, we would then go to council, obviously, to see if it can be resolved. But because the committees are not taking action, I would assume that it's unlikely that there's going to be conflict of interest issues with the committees. Or maybe you have an example or not.
I do.
Okay.
I mean, I've been asking or thinking about this question from the beginning, and it's no offense to TS, but it has to do with collectively, as the board has sued someone in litigation. I work for a law firm too, so I understand that and how these things work. So when you have collectively the board representing the homeowners, and I'm a homeowner, meaning that we have gone into litigation and we've sued,